And welcome back to the KDPG Sunday edition. I'm Paul Martino. Later this morning, Pittsburgh is holding one of its most popular summer events. About 40,000 people attend each edition of Open Streets Pittsburgh. 3 times a year, the tables are turned. Instead of local streets open exclusively to cars, they're turned over to people on bikes. They're running, they're skating, anything else they can think of within reason. And they don't have to worry about traffic. Today's Open Streets is the final one of 2019. Should Pittsburgh dedicate more space for people on bikes? Our next guest is a big advocate for just that. Alex Shusik is the Communications and Marketing Manager for Bike Pittsburgh, the region's largest nonprofit, pushing to get more people on their bikes and more bikeable and walkable streets within the city. Group also the main organizer of Open Streets Pittsburgh. Alex, we welcome you. Thanks for coming in this morning. And I know you have a lot of wonderful things to talk about, but before we get to all of that, why is it that do you think that so many people complain about these bike lanes? What is it? And why are the bike lanes important to the city?
Well, I do think that the media pushes that for the headlines. It gets definitely the most comments in those sections. But I think it's important to realize that people on bikes are humans and that we deserve equal space in the road. And you should look at us as somebody's mom, somebody's dad, somebody's kid that's biking to school, biking to work. And it shouldn't be a joke. It should be taken seriously, and we deserve that.
Safety, number one.
Yes.
But also, isn't part of it to make us a more active city and attract younger people into the city?
Definitely, but it's also affordability. Not everybody has the amount of money to be able to to have a car with all this new development, to be able to have space for all these cars. When the more affordable thing to do would be to bike to work, to take public transit, to walk. Bike Pittsburgh's not just a bike advocacy organization. We also are a pedestrian advocacy organization. And we want to make sure that no matter which way you decide to get to work, to school, that you have a safe option, not just by driving.
Enormously expensive to park downtown.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was going to say, but the city derives a lot of money from the parking tax. That's a big source
Yes.
of revenue. So how far can you push the bike lanes without sort of affecting the city's parking tax revenue?
There was actually an article recently about this, how there were some parking lanes taken away and bike lanes put in, and actually parking actually is making more revenue as the years are going on. Even though some bike lanes have taken that space, which is a very tiny minimum number, they're making more and more money every year. So you're not losing money, you're making more. It's crazy because there's such a high demand, you know, to be able to move a couple of those cars, or something that Bike Pittsburgh's actually advocating for right now are parking protected bike lanes. So the bike lane would go through the side of the road and you'd have cars that would be the barrier. Instead of having those pylons, a car would be a physical barrier to other cars. So we're trying to help all.
And that's going to require some state legislation to enact that.
Definitely.
Right now, they couldn't do it under current law, but there's a law pending, correct? Do you know where that is?
Yes, there's a law pending. It has passed, I believe, in the Senate, but not in the House yet. So we're just waiting on that, but it is in.
What are the prospects, and do you think Governor Wolf, is he in favor of it?
We have it signed, or we have a lot of people behind it in Pittsburgh, and we have a lot of advocates pushing for it in other areas like Greensburg. So we're trying to push it locally as much as we possibly can.
So the city's been working on a master plan for biking, right? Can you tell me where that stands? And you mentioned protected bike lanes, but what else might this plan include?
I'm actually missing a meeting right now at this point to get an update from the city on the bike plan.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. But the goal would be to have a more connected bike infrastructure. I would assume that BRT, bus rapid transit, would be a part of that, and trying to connect especially the big Fifth Forbes corridor. There's recently placed new bike lanes on Forbes Ave. So now the big universities, Pitt and CMU, now you could bike from one end to the other on a safe lane. And that's huge. How many kids do you see between those two campuses bike? How many students, how many teachers? Susan Hicks died on that road.
Right.
University professor biking to work. So
Right at
this
a
is
traffic light,
huge,
yeah.
to be able to have more connections, to be able to have safe connections. It's going to take a lot from the city, but it's going to be huge for our city.
Well, one thing I don't hear complaints about is Open Streets Pittsburgh. Enormously popular. You've got one going this weekend. Tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. This is a really cool route, downtown to uptown to the south side, and it's actually the last year we could do it for now because the Armstrong tunnels are going to be closed for construction. So if you've never biked through a tunnel before, it's a really cool experience. And you get to go over two beautiful bridges, the 10th Street Bridge and the Birmingham Bridge. So it's going to be a really cool event. You were talking about biking and walking, but there's also classes provided by the YMCA, free fitness classes. We have yoga. We have a brand new kids hub where kids could learn how to ride bikes in the south side. And other classes too, like how to family meal prep with the YMCA, and some music classes as well. So we're trying to expand our reach, and not just a bike event. You can do so many things.
Well, how does Pittsburgh's bicycle infrastructure compare to that of other cities?
I mean, if you look at Europe, a lot of cities are trying to close down some of the main market areas. So like for Pittsburgh, Market Square would be a lovely area, lovely space to see how opening it up for pedestrians and cyclists, a space that is mostly full of pedestrians at the main points. They're using these types of strategies to say, maybe let's just shut it down for a weekend, shut it down for a Saturday, and try to get more people active. But I mean, we're a work in progress, and the city needs to make it a priority.
The narrowness of our streets, though, is a problem, right? Some of our streets.
In a way, it's great because people are traveling at slower speeds. So to be able to have that space, to have that little extra section, will be safer for all modes of transportation. It has been shown in studies that adding a bike lane makes it safer for all users, pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. There are less crashes, accidents, deaths with a bike lane on that road.
Is it becoming safer in Pittsburgh for bicyclists? I mean, it seems like some summers there's a rash of incidents. Is it becoming safer, and if so, is it a matter of public acceptance and awareness?
I think it is a matter of public acceptance, but it's also the lack of connections. Once we have those safe connections, and also people not parking in the bike lanes, and it's not even just it's everyone, you know, it's UPS, it's all these different delivery trucks. It's just making sure that they make the space for us. Even though that space is there, doesn't even mean we even have it. So it's just making sure that we have a safe connection.
There's an enormous amount of development going on in the city, particularly in places like the Strip District, where that produce terminal project is underway. Will there be a bike lane there? How will that work out?
I believe there will be a bike lane there. They're still having feedback meetings. There was a survey that was just shut down last night. It was open for 2 weeks that we were sharing on our website. The city created to make sure that people put in their comments for the Penn Ave, Terminal Way kind of area, because one of our big pushes is to extend Penn. Doesn't mean on Penn Avenue, but to have a connection from the Strip, through the Strip to downtown, from Lawrenceville, Bloomfield, where all these new developments are.
Well, Smallman might be the way to go, right?
It could be, yeah, definitely. And it still gives you, there's how many, 6 lanes for cars? There's right now no lanes for bikes. Nothing. There's so many options for cars to get down that way. So why not provide a little space for people who are trying to get to work, get to school?
In a couple parts of the city, you have some development starting from scratch. Hazelwood Greene is one example. Mm-hmm. Are you sort of getting in on the ground floor there to make sure that the needs of the bicycle community are addressed as the development unfolds?
Yes, we try to have a seat at the table whenever we possibly can with the city and new developments, just in making sure that they're doing it to standards that you see all over the world, all over the country, and making sure that when it is put in and installed, it's done the right way. And we kind of ask all the questions early at the table before.
Integrated into the design.
Yes.
So what else is in this master plan that you're developing? Or that's being developed? I don't want to put it all on your shoulders.
Yeah, it's the city that is the main focus. So I believe that they plan on launching it either this fall or later this winter. And you'll see the different stages that they're going to be completing, different connections throughout the city.
Well, we've talked about bike lanes and how accepting our drivers of bicyclists, and how much commitment does the city have to bicycles. But what about building owners? I mean, are there places for people to take bikes to work and store bikes?
There's definitely a lot of places. Bike Pittsburgh actually works with Darrow to sell bike racks to different businesses all around the city, and they have bike rack installations inside buildings, outside buildings. I believe Uber is one of the ones that has this like gigantic bike parking place for all of their employees. It's beautiful. So there's so many options that you could have inside and outside your building. And the north side actually is doing a really big thing for business owners. They're trying to make sure that there's lots of bike racks available for their businesses, as well as pumps and things like that cyclists might need if they kind of get stuck on the way.
So they're using those bike lanes?
Yeah, definitely. And they're encouraging people to get excited and have a safe transportation way.
Do you have any numbers on usage? Is usage up?
Actually, one big number that we just hit was that there were over 1 million trips on the Penn Ave bike lanes. We just hit that number. If you've ever been on the bike lanes, there's a little wire that goes across, and every time a bike rides across it, it tags a trip. So over 1 million trips. That's crazy. People are using it. Over 1 million. That's a big number, and that's something that we could use in the future. And a big thing is they actually take those out in the fall, winter, spring because of snow, trying to clear them out. So it's probably an even bigger number than that.
1 million over what period of time are we talking?
Since they were installed.
Since they were installed, what has that been? 3, 4 years?
5,
something
6,
like 5, 6? Okay.
Yeah.
Something like that. But they are using them.
Yes.
And I notice I'm seeing more and more folks out there in the bike lanes.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
With the summer, people are always out. And the biggest thing, we just had a survey, Greene Building Alliance actually just had a survey, and they found that more people, it was like a ridiculous number, 80% of people would use bike lanes more if they were connected. And they would bike more if they had a bike lane option there. If you go to cities like Montreal, you see this beautiful Olympic Tower 2 miles away. How do I get there? Oh, I just follow the bike lane. There's
Alex,
not
we're
even a
going to have to
question.
leave it there.
Okay, great.
Love your enthusiasm, love your commitment. Thanks for coming in this morning. We'll be back in a moment when the KDPG Sunday edition continues.